Hello, happy Venus Day. Happy Venus Day, beautiful people. Welcome. Mercury retrograde is almost over. Thank Goddess. How is Mercury retrograde treating all of you? Whew, this week I was out. I had intense solar plexus purging. And it was my intention to do this live on Wednesday evening, but I just wasn't feeling it. And so I let myself rest and feeling better now. But I did want to hop on and share some stories, do some story time with me on spirit and power animals, but more like insects in my case, because I got some funny ass stories. Funny now, but not in the moment. It was not funny in the moment. Okay. The term spirit animals gets thrown around a lot. And it's really common for people who feel some sort of affinity with like a nice animal or like a cute animal like the wolf, or I don't know, an eagle, and be like, that's my spirit animal. Yeah. Or a horse, or who knows. And spirit animals and power animals are part of a lot of indigenous cultures, and it's not like oh yeah, that's my spirit animal just because I have an affinity with this animal. Oftentimes the literal spirit of certain animals comes down from like the spirit realm to visit you and to share their strength, to share their wisdom, and or to initiate you and help you shed and purge and transform and like step into a stronger better version or iteration of yourself. And oftentimes it's not a cutesy experience with spirit animals. It's oftentimes when we truly have a mystical encounter with a spirit animal. It's not cutesy. It's shocking. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Okay. I want to talk about the two spirit animals, insects that have visited me and have accompanied me throughout my journey, throughout my awakening. And these weren't necessarily animals, they're insects. The first one is the spider, and the second one is the wasp. And again, those aren't very cutesy, and it's not like I always thought that those would be my spirit. These are actually more my power animals. And my spirit animals are different. Ooh, okay. What's the difference between spirit and power animals? Spirit animals, our soul has characteristics that are really similar to other animals in the wild. And so if we struggle to exist in the human world, if we struggle to like do things the human ways that's like typical and expected of us, that's probably because we operate in a really different way, just naturally. And the way that we operate might be related to, or just really connected to, the ways other animals be and exist. And then a power animal. Okay, a power animal can be confronting. it can be really confronting to experience your power animal, because typically, in order for us to access our power, and in order for this animal spirit to help us access our power, we have to let go of fear. There's usually a lot of fear and limiting beliefs. That's like the outer shell, and inside is like the pearl, and this pearl is our power. So in order for us to step into our power and to transform into this more authentic and powerful version of ourselves, a power animal comes around, and it can scare the shit out of us. Oftentimes a power animal isn't the cutesy kind. And we might fear it. We might even think it's ugly or just like have all these judgments of this power animal. But when we sit with this confronting power animal and we listen to the message that it has for us, to its wisdom, to its power, it serves as a mirror, and then it sort of helps us see the power and the wisdom that we have within ourselves, that we share with this power animal. So that is what the wasp and the spider have been for me. I'm gonna start with the spider because that was the first one. Okay. So ever since I was a little kid, I had arachnophobia. And I know this is a really common, like, spider for a lot of humans. But I legit had arachnophobia. Like, my mom tells me stories. I must have been like 2 or 3. And we were, I don't know, somewhere. I think at some restaurant. And all of a sudden I'm like shrieking, like something's attacking me. And everyone's like, what's happened? What's wrong? And then I'm like, and it was this like tiny little spider. And so I've had arachnophobia since forever. And throughout, as I grew, adolescence, young adulthood, always like, oh my God, I can't even with spiders, would always kill them. And then around right when I like left the US and I was starting my journey here in Bolivia, spiders were just fucking everywhere. They would just like pop up. And I started having more like whoa experiences with spiders. Like I was like, oh, this is more than just like a random little house spider in the corner of my room. Spiders are actually, they have a lot of mystical significance. They have 8 legs, and 8 is the number of abundance and infinity. And spiders are weavers. And so they, if y'all remember Charlotte's Web, right? That spider literally could write and communicate. They are communicators. And oftentimes the spirit realm will send either animals or whatever's most accessible, which for most of us humans who are not spending much time in nature, they'll send these little insects to communicate with us and send messages. Spiders represent like grandmother energy, and they're very wise, and they are, probably one of the most feared insects amongst humanity. And what's interesting is that whatever kind of spider crosses your path, and however, like the way it crosses your path, interpreting all of that reveals a specific message that it has for you. And the color of the spider too. And So, okay, this one time, uh, this person was not the healthiest person and was like wanting to hang out with me and was like inviting me like come over and I wasn't really feeling it, but I was like feeling bad about saying no and setting a boundary. It was my people pleasing, and I was like, oh, they're gonna feel so sad if I say no. um and I was going like against. I was like, okay, I'll go, even though I was feeling, oh, I don't know why, but I feel like I shouldn't go. Um, and I went to the bathroom to shower and get ready, and as soon as I walk into the bathroom, I see this huge ass black widow just on the fucking floor. Like it was big. It was big, okay? Um, and it was a whoa, it was a big shock because it was also just kind of random. Like, how the fuck did this black widow, a black widow, make it into this bathroom? I mean, yeah, we have a window. It was really random, and that big of a black widow. Like, what the fuck? And and that was like a big message to me of like, slow down, like toxicity ahead, unhealthy environment ahead, put yourself first or else risk getting bitten. and and so I was like, whoa, okay. And I didn't end up going to hang out with this person. And I later found out that that they're just really, really unwell, and that it was for my highest good to set that boundary and to not spend so much time with them. Um, and and I was just fascinated. I was fascinated that that spirit showed up for me in this way. And normally I would have been like terrified. And I'm not gonna lie, I was shook. I was like, whoa, still like, creepy crawly, Um, and yeah. And then and I got to the point where like, okay, yeah, I can like have the initial like, the goosebumps and like the little scare, like, oh, there's a spider. But then I was able to get a cup and a little piece of paper or a plate or something, and then take it outdoors and set it free. That was a big step for someone who had arachnophobia, who to get to that point. And then, okay, I'm gonna weave into the wasp. Because again, I got to a point where I was like, okay, spirit, when there's a spider around, I know it's you. I might get a little like jumpy at first, but okay, I'm kind to these spiders and I talk to them and then I set them free. Then Spirit sent me the wasp. Spirit sent the wasp into my life. And and it was because I was ready to level up. And this was when I left the US, was like fresh living in Bolivia. I was living in La Paz, and I had spent about a month in the city center, and I was living in an apartment, and my body was like, oh, we can't do apartments, we can't do city life anymore. We want a garden and a house. And I found this beautiful, it was literally a tiny blue house. It was like a little 1 bedroom with like a little tiny kitchen, and it had a big garden, and it had this beautiful gazebo just in the middle of the garden. And I was like, perfect. And then the first day that I got there, first day, the next day, the first morning that I got there, I was like, oh, this gazebo is beautiful. I'm gonna have some cacao and just have like little cacao ceremonies every morning, and it's gonna be fun and beautiful. And I like prepare my morning beverage and I go into the gazebo and it's stuffy in there. The doors were closed. So I open all the doors and I like sit down, I take my first sip, and then zoom, like in flies a wasp. And I freak the fuck out. And I'm like, whoa. And I noticed that I went into um I went into freeze. I was in my freeze response. And um I was like, I'm sure it's gonna leave. I'm just gonna like ignore it. I'm gonna go back to my yummy beverage. And I tried taking my first sip and I couldn't relax. Like I just had to like keep my eyes on it so I knew that it wouldn't approach me or touch me or sting me. And I couldn't fucking relax. That was the next thing I noticed. I was like, all of my attention was on this wasp. And this immense fear of getting stung was all that was present. And I couldn't relax and I couldn't enjoy my morning, my beverage. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm gonna try to relax and enjoy my morning, enjoy my beverage. It's probably just, it's just probably gonna like fly away. And then next thing I know, zoom, it like flies really fast and like really close to me. And then I freaked out. I was like, nope. And I got up and I was terrified. I started running. And as I ran, I tripped and I fell and I had my cacao in my hand and I dropped it and it spilled. The glass didn't break, thank goodness, and then I fell and I was hurting. And then I was also just freaking the fuck out. I was like, oh my God, the wasp, it's gonna come after me. And I like scrambled up and just like ran into the house. And I was just like, okay, I'm catching my breath. Mind you, that morning, I was damn sure, I was just so sure that all of my windows were closed. I mean, I didn't have a reason to open my windows. They were closed from the day before. And this kitchen was tiny. And the kitchen had a small little window and like a little bench sofa. It wasn't a sofa, but like a little bench against the wall where the window was. And then in front was the kitchen. It was just small little space. And I was sitting on the bench, like, closed the door, slammed the door shut because I was just terrified. And then next thing I know, I heard bzzz, I heard the fucking wing flap of this wasp and I freaked out and I was like, what the? Thinking it had followed me or something. And I like turned back around and just ran to the other end of the kitchen. It was short space, small space. And I like sat on one of the chairs and turned around and man, I was fucking terrified. And I saw that the window was slightly ajar. I don't know how the fucking spirit fucking opened it somehow when I wasn't there looking. And a wasp, made its way in through the little crack in the window, and it was on the curtain, on the little windowsill curtain, and it was just there. And I start bawling. I start crying out of terror, out of fear, out of, oh my God. I probably cried for 15 minutes straight, like hard cry, like terrified cry, like, when I was like, wait, after the 15 minutes, I was like, wait, it's not flying. It's like not even really moving anywhere. What is wrong with this? What is happening? And then I just like observed it in silence, still with like fear. And then I noticed that this little wasp was so much smaller than me. And something was wrong with it. Like it was actually needing help. And I started feeling compassion for the wasp, and I started feeling like, oh, this little wasp, hmm, this little wasp needs my help. And this was, you know, this was a different level of fear compared to the spider, because the spider can't fly and it can't sting you multiple times like a wasp can. And spiders aren't necessarily aggressive the way wasps are known to be randomly aggressive, randomly. And I probably sat there for 30 minutes, just like 30 extra minutes after the 15 minutes that I was just hysterically crying, and was like just breathing and trying to like, okay, I can do this. I can get a cup and get a plate and I can help this little wasp. It was much harder than trying to help a spider. And eventually mustered the courage, found the things, made my way over, got the little wasp in a cup, went outside, and then I set it free. And then I took a little walk around the entire garden. I was like, why was there? I was like, that's not the same wasp that was just flying in the gazebo. The fuck? Where are these wasps coming from? And I do a little walk around the gazebo. Lo and behold, there was a huge wasp nest right outside my bedroom window, which was right near the kitchen window. And there was like other smaller wasp nests around the garden that were also forming. I was like, hell no, you gotta be kidding me. Oh my God. And they were out and about and in literally just full swing. They were just living their lives, doing their thing. And there were so many of them, like so many. This garden, I was like, damn, what the fuck am I gonna do? I could let the landlord know and get some extermination. Then I was like, no, I can't do that. This is their home. This was their home before it was mine. And I just like felt in my heart, I was like, dang, I gotta learn how to coexist with wasps. I gotta learn how to share the space and live with wasps. And man, and I was living there for, I think it was about 2 months ish, maybe a little more. I can't remember. I was like, oh my God, I gotta stay here. I wasn't about to up and move. It was a cute little spot. And then I was too scared to go back into the gazebo, and I was too scared to go out into the garden. So I just stayed indoors with all the windows shut. um, and I just did a deep dive research on wasps, and learned so much about wasps and how actually they are critical to garden ecosystems. They're extremely important for they're like nature's pest control. And most species of wasps don't aren't like randomly aggressive, but they will attack if if they feel that they are under attack. And when one wasp feels threatened, they release certain hormones that reaches the rest of their colony, and then the rest of them come to their aid, and hence why you can't get chased by a whole freaking nest of wasps. Um, they I also learned a lot about their significance, their spiritual significance. They're a power animal, and literally because most of them are the color yellow, and they represent your personal power. Like that's the solar plexus in our energy system. And they're incredibly what's the phrase, they work together. They're really big on teamwork, and they all like build the nest together, and they all go and search for food to feed their little larvae, their little babies in their colony. And there's so much more. I'm forgetting a lot of it, but essentially the lesson in that season for me, or the assignment, was learning. It was a lot of learning about fear. How does fear manifest in my body? How does it rise in my heart, in my spirit? How does it rise in my body? What are the physical sensations that I notice when fear is overpowering my experience? And how do I shift out of a fear response to being present and releasing fear and coming back to my center? I don't know how to do this shit. But I was literally like getting trained by the spirits, by the spirit realm, just like warrior training, like how to shift out of a freeze or a flight, or just any fear response. And learning how to coexist among a species that, upon first sight, triggered so much fear in me. And learning how to be with, live with a species that I feared. That's another thing. I noticed I feared it because I judged how ugly they looked. And so anyways, I also learned that wasps, they are mostly active when the sun is the strongest. So they're not very active in the early hours of the morning. They're active mainly like around 11 a.m. to like 3 p.m. And then once the sun starts going down, they're less active. So we just, had different shifts. Like they got the garden during their work time, and I felt more comfortable being in the garden and the gazebo in the later hours of the day when they were not as active. And then they go to sleep. It's really cute. If you look at them in their nests, you can see them sleeping. And yeah. And so after my like 2 months of intimate connection and time with the wasps, I eventually left La Paz and I came to Cochabamba, and I lived with my grandmother. And my grandmother has this beautiful garden, and it wasn't filled with tons of wasps, like this other garden where I had lived in. But I remember the first day that I went to go lie down in her garden, one little wasp like flew really close to me. I think it landed on my towel. And I noticed, I was like, but it wasn't this like intense terror. It was this, oh yeah, okay, wasp. Hi, friend. And I just talked to it like, hi, little friend. Hi, little wasp. I remember you. You remember me. And then it eventually, flew away. And yeah, but there were just a lot of like spiritual messages that the wasp shared with me, particularly around fear and power, and how beings with immense power are often feared, or we tend to fear power. We tend to fear our own power. And another like cute little thing that the wasp shared with me was, don't be afraid to sting. Don't be afraid to sting whoever the fuck crosses your boundaries. Wasps are wasps are not afraid to fucking sting a motherfucker who tries to come for them. And it was really helpful for me in like, that's right, I have my boundaries, and if anyone tries to cross my boundaries in harmful ways, I can sting. I can bite, I can sting, I can do whatever the fuck I need to do. And yeah. So anyways, okay. And I was at my grandma's garden, and the wasp was visiting, and it was a huge moment of like progress, because I noticed I had a comparison of like the first time the wasp entered my life and the intensity and the amount of terror that rose within me, compared to that, a couple months later after warrior and fear training with the wasps in the other garden. When this wasp approached really, a little too close for comfort, the intensity and amount of terror was nowhere near the amount of that rose in my body and in my system compared to that first time. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, like, whoa, that's cool. Okay. And of course, like once we reach a certain level, spirit is going to, if you choose and you decide and you call in to continuously level up, spirit's gonna fucking level you up. Be like, okay, you're not afraid of wasps and spiders anymore? Well, okay, here's your next level up. And the next kind of like iteration of shift, noticing and noticing my fear response and shifting out of fear response to a more regulated state. The next iteration of that training happened about 1.5 years or 2 years later. I forget. It was about like 2 years. I found this beautiful little house still here in Cochabamba, that I was renting. And it was the first time like renting. It was a little house, but it was bigger than the tiny little blue house that I originally lived in La Paz. And again, like big garden, lots of open green space. And I'm pretty sure this was like the first night or like the first day I got there, and I like, put my stuff down and I go into the bathroom. I was always in the fucking bathroom, man. And above the toilet, right on the wall, is this big ass spider, like boom, oh shit. And I had gotten pretty comfortable and grown a lot in my like fear response with spiders. So I was like, why am I scared? But this was like the biggest spider that had crossed my path thus yet. It was about the size of my palm, or like a little smaller than my palm. And it was hairy. It was not a tarantula yet. I'll get to that. But it was I didn't know what kind of spider it was. I was like, oh, I've never seen this kind of spider before. And whew, I had to like walk away from the bathroom for a minute. I was like, okay, this is a new level. Let me take some breaths and muster the courage to I was like freaked the fuck out to usher this friend, this little big ass spider into a cup. But I did it. And um and then it was maybe like a couple weeks or like a week or two later. It was nighttime, and I was doing my evening wind down routine where I turn all the lights off and I just have some candles. And I was doing some stretching before bed. I was in the living room, and this thing was within the first week, and I was like, this is a new environment. I don't really know what to expect. It was hard to like rest and relax. And but I did my best. I did. And then next thing I know, I like kind of sit up, and I don't know why or how, but I just like turned my neck just a little bit, and I see something in one of the shadows. I was like, what is that? That looks like something. And I shine my little phone flashlight, and it's another one of those spiders, those big ones, those new ones for me. And this was a big one, like big, okay? And I was like, ah! And it was on the floor, and I was on the floor, and I was like, oh my God. And did my best to, again, like, okay, I'm gonna breathe through this. And got a cup, and it was so big, like the rim of the cup, it like didn't even really fit into the rim of the cup. And I cupped it, took it outdoors, released it. And I came back indoors, and I started crying because I was scared. This is real. The fear that rises is real. And so many of us are conditioned to avoid our fear. And or we're stuck in freeze, fight or flight, and we don't know how to shift from freeze, fight, or flight to a regulated state. And oftentimes it's because we need to cry about how scared we were. And the reason so many of us are conditioned and don't know how to do that is because when we were kids, if we were scared, we naturally started crying, which is how we regulate our nervous system. But what did many of the adults, what did our parents say once we start crying because we're scared? Oh, don't cry, don't be scared, stop crying. And okay, we stop crying. Anyway, so I start crying because I'm like, and I'm like crying all the fear out of my system. And the next day, I have a telepathic connection with some beings. It's not all beings, and it's not every single time with the same beings. It's like selective. And so the spider that was on the floor, it was a thick, it had thick legs. It was hairy. It was and this one had like a thick booty and a thick body. And and so the next day I like looked up, I was like, what kind of spider is this? Because I was scared it was like, I don't know, a brown recluse. And like maybe that it would like should I be scared? Should I be concerned? Like, could it, like, if it somehow bites me, can I die? Will I die? And then turns out it was a wolf spider. And I learned so much about a wolf spider, their significance, and these spiders are more earth-based. They don't weave webs. They don't spin webs. They have little caves and burrows in the ground, in the earth. And wolf spiders are some intense motherfuckers that hunt for their prey, just like wolves. This is why they're called wolf spiders. Just like wolves, they like ambush their prey. They just ambush other insects and whatever else they eat. And turns out that, oh, there was so much spiritual significance. Wolf spiders carry their babies, they carry their egg sac on them. They don't like lay their eggs in their web. Again, they don't really spin webs, but their egg sac that they spin, they carry on them, on their body, until they hatch. And even when they hatch, they still carry their young, their babies, until their young are big enough to like exist on their own. And the wild thing is, if I hadn't caught this wolf spider that evening, it would have, because this wolf spider was pregnant. This wolf spider had its hatchlings on its back. And actually, I'm pretty sure they were already hatched from what I remember, like seeing. I took a close look at it once it was in the cup. This wolf spider would have had its hatchlings, and or the other ones would have hatched inside the fucking house. And that's hundreds of baby wolf spiders. And late the next day, I like the clarity of the telepathic message from this wolf spider came through. It was because that evening it was just kind of there. It wasn't moving. And this wolf spider was like made itself visible. It purposefully made itself visible to me because it was asking for my help. It was asking for my assistance. It was asking for a doula. How crazy is that? This wolf spider was asking for a doula so that it could continue, so that its hatchlings could continue hatching in an environment more suitable for her, for this wolf spider. And because it knew that it was like indoors, and it knew that it was not like in its natural habitat, and it wanted to be outdoors. And so it was crazy, y'all. I was like, what? And so every couple days, like a new wolf spider would appear, and in like a random location. And I started noticing with each like appearance of this wolf spider, I was less and less startled every time I crossed paths with it, until maybe like 3 weeks in. I went to the bathroom, and again, there was a wolf spider on the wall. It was a big one. And this time I was not startled at all. I was so surprised at how neutral I had experienced this apparition of a wolf spider. And I was like, hold up, Chaski. Hold up, Chaski. hold up, you just, it was nothing. It was so neutral that just, oh yeah, there it is. And that was like a little moment, like a little graduation for me, like, oh shit, I was neutral. My nervous system did not spike or get startled. And the message that came through from spirit regarding this sort of like fear training was, the spirit realm is no longer inaccessible to the majority of humans. The veil is getting thinner and thinner with each day that passes, so that more and more humans, whether they know it or not, are interacting with the spirit realm. Yes, you are seeing spirits. Yes, you are hearing spirits. Yes, those like random little sensations, you are feeling spirits touch you. And the thing is, most humans are terrified of the mystical, the shit they can't see or justify or make sense of. And spirit says, we ain't got no time for people's fear and for people to just not realize that this is real. Like, the spirit realm is real. We are here. And we are very clearly starting to engage with and communicate with more humans, because humanity needs the spirit realm. So many humans need that clear connection from their ancestors, from their spirit guides. And a lot of times when our ability to listen to and our ability to see beyond the veil, once it starts opening and getting stronger, we start having our fear response. We start fearing that which we can't control or that which we don't understand. And yeah, and so spirit was like, this is how we are training you, Chaski. This is how I specifically was trained by the spirits. They were like, we're gonna start like showing up in much more obvious, can't deny ways that might startle you. But if you make the connection of, we're just like insects, so don't get startled if you hear us or see us in, an out of the blue moment. Just like when these insects show up, there's no need to fear us or to have that fear response or to be startled. It's natural, it still happens every now and then, but it's that training of shifting from our fear response to a more regulated state, so that we can clearly receive and perceive that which the spirit realm has for us. And then, yeah, like spiders just popping up, no longer, I was like, okay, spirit, that's cool. You know what? I know I'm ready for another level up, but can y'all just not make it that intense for whatever the next level up is? I will say that the following level up was a scorpion. It was a tiny one, though. It was tiny. Thank God it was tiny. And the first scorpion that crossed my path was dead, because I know that the spirits would have. I know the spirits knew that if a real ass scorpion had crossed my path at first, like for the first time, I would have shit my pants. Yeah. So the first one that I saw was tiny and it was dead, and it just, allowed me to have my like startled moment, my shook moment of like, oh my god, that's a scorpion. And then to like know like, okay, if like a real one crosses my path at some point, to just breathe through it. And then like about a couple weeks later, a live scorpion scuttled into the living room. I was staying somewhere where scorpions live and are abundant. And yeah, it was startling, and I was able to just like, okay, I had gone through this training enough for when something scary appeared to like, okay, breathe, and I knew the protocol. And then this is the like fucking wildest experience that I have had yet. I kid you not, a tarantula crossed my path, literally. Grandmother tarantula literally crossed my path. And at this point, I was back in the city. I was back in Cochabamba. And I went out for a walk one day on the fucking bike trail, okay? On a urban bike trail. And I literally had who the fuck expects to cross paths with a tarantula when you're in a city on a fucking bike trail? So I start, I'm just like walking down the bike trail, and then I see this tarantula just like bloop, 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 making its merry way down the fucking bike trail. And my jaw just fucking dropped. And I was like, no, how the fuck? And I bowed down. I bowed down to the tarantula, and I was like, wow, you are the queen of all arachnids. Oh my God. I wasn't scared and I wasn't startled, but I was shook in a beautiful, like magical, childlike awe of like, holy shit, that's a tarantula. And I was giddy, and I was just like giggling and couldn't believe it. And it honestly, it felt like, and it was a gift. It was such a gift from spirit. And I took pictures of her. I took a little video of her, which I'll share in my newsletter. So hop on my newsletter if you're not on my newsletter yet. Link is in my bio. And it was a moment. It was like a graduation moment. It was like a, wow, okay, I met the spider, the arachnid at the top of the food chain, a fucking tarantula. And tarantulas are interesting because they're not poisonous to humans. They don't give a fuck. Okay, that's the thing. Most insects that we're afraid of don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about humans. But humans we're so in our ego, and we're like, oh my God, the insect, the bug, that we make it about us because we think that insect, that bug is going to come after us, and they don't give a fuck about us. They're just like on their merry way and just doing their thing. They're just existing. But yeah, tarantulas are very kind. They're regal. They're so regal. If you just saw the way this tarantula she was strutting her stuff. She was just so fucking regal. And so the tarantula was like my ultimate power animal that shared her message of, when you are, and this was a grandmother, she had grandmother energy. She had feminine energy. She wasn't a grandmother. She was an empowered, she had the energy of an empowered femme, like fully self-actualized, femme who was in her power, who didn't bear children yet, or just didn't, but was in her power. She knew her beauty, she knew her wisdom, she knew her intelligence, and she knew her worth. And she moved through the world knowing all of that. And in moving through the world with those knowings and in that way, she was an inspiration to many. However, most humans who crossed her path, in seeing her in her beauty and in her queendom, feared her. She was very much feared. And so she had this just beautiful message of, yeah, when you're in your fucking power and you know you're in your fucking power, most people don't understand that and don't understand you, and so will immediately just fear or doubt you in your power. So yeah, those are my cute little stories with not so cutesy spirit power animals, but more like insects. And yeah, I hope it resonates. I hope it inspires. I hope it you get little light bulb moments. Maybe if you're hearing these stories in this message, it's probably because spirit has been trying to reach you through other spirit insects or spirit animals or power insects or power animals. So yeah, I hope you open your heart and you open your inner eyes and your inner ears to see and hear the messages and the wisdom and the love and the guidance that these beautiful beings have for you. Yes. All right, my loves, I'm gonna hop off. And I guess one last announcement is today my Mercury retrograde spiritual first aid offer expires. It's a short-term container where you experience, okay, there's 4 sessions for 444. And the first session is your soul purpose birth chart transmission. And the other 3 sessions can be like follow-up shamanic healing sessions with me. It can also be, you can also use those 3 other sessions as other astrology readings. I offer love and sex readings. I offer relationship synastry readings, Saturn return transit readings, and astrocartography readings. So you're welcome to mix and match any of those 4 sessions with any astrology readings or shamanic healing sessions. And yeah, DM me if you would like to schedule your first session. And I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful weekend with lots of rest and laughter and good nourishment and good company. Bye. Oh, and I want to see who